Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Are you holding up your camera, your phone?
I am.
Oh, are you going to be able to manage? Did you have nothing to hold it on to?
Do you know who I am? It's like, no, I'm joking, man.
Okay.
I was with Johnny and Ralph last night in Wisconsin. Oh no, wait, we was in Wisconsin. Excuse me. We was in Hammond, Indiana, right outside of Chicago.
Okay.
I got skills.
Okay. That's fine. So, guys, I want to introduce you to. Now, I know him as One Detroit, but and one of the things that I've known about you since I've known you for online for the past year and a half, 2 years, is you seem to be the guy who knows everybody, whether it's Karyn White or Ralph, Johnny, Bobby, Full Force. It just seems as if
the Force MDs, Karyn White, Ice-T, you name it, I can claim it.
Okay.
And if I don't, I can tell you a story because I was there.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah, but but one of the things I also noticed, because I mentioned it about 2 years ago. I saw a part of your interview, and I didn't realize some of your background story. But just to start off with, I always tell my guests that we've got an international audience, and it's always good to know where you were sort of born and raised, so we can let everyone know.
Right. Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Philadelphia, and then I moved to a town called Willingboro, New Jersey, which was probably about 35 minutes outside of Philadelphia, 45 minutes sometimes with traffic, real close. You can always go back and forth. But I started out in Philadelphia, but that's not where things took off at all.
Okay.
Ironically, Wanye Morris of Boyz II Men, who was born in Philadelphia, moved to Willingboro, New Jersey.
Oh.
One day, I'm watching BET, right? Michael Bivins he's doing an interview. And he says something to Donnie Simpson about my guys. He says another bad creation out of Atlanta, GA. And he says, and my guys, he named them, and he said, Boyz II Men out of Philly. And I'm thinking, is that I didn't know if that was a clique, a gang, or a group, or whatever. I'm like, but that's, they named themselves after the song. I'm not thinking nothing of it. Fast forward up, Boyz II Men was in a Black Beat magazine, a real small article, very small article. And they didn't have the bow ties, the cardigan sweaters, none of that swag. They had regular R&B outfits, but they had these African walking sticks. Oh. It was Motown Christmas in Jamaica. So Chinese, everybody on the label was there, but they just had this little black and white picture of Boyz II Men. And I'm looking like, this dude that just appeared in school one day, and I'm like, that can't be him. And then Michael Bivins brings them on BET. He brings another bad creation out, and then he brings them on Boyz II Men. And I'm like, I knew it. So I'm walking down the hall the next day, and Lord knows I don't know when they taped Video Soul or whatever, but I'm walking down the hall next day, and I hold this little article up next to him. I was like, man, I knew that was you. And he's just like, yo, oh my God, can I have this? I'm like, yeah, sure. He wanted the magazine. He didn't even know they was in it. I was like, wow, but that was like the first little write-up thing. So what would happen is every day we would sit outside of that class and talk music nonstop. When they was ready to do, and I always had a camera. Either I was doing television production.
In high school?
Yeah, man, we had a television studio in high school, man. I'm so thankful for that place. Like, listen, they gave me a place just to explore any realms of creativity. Like, by the time I became a senior, I only had to go to like 4 or 5 classes, and literally I could just stay in the television studio the whole day. So we had open range on everything. We shoot music videos, did TV. I remember interviewing Carl Lewis, was the Olympic star.
Yeah.
Won like 11 gold medals or something like that. He won 4 and 3 and so whatever. He went to he was an alumnus or whatever. So he comes back to school to do something. They come get me out of class, and I go interview him. It was like I said, I was the guy, from 89, 90 to 91 for everything. And I used to work the stage lights in the theater.
Okay.
Yeah, they used to pay me well for that too, man. Think about it, 16, 17 years, I'm turning in invoices. They pay me $27, $30 an hour to do this.
Wow.
Yeah, man. It was fun. I used to hire my friends, like, I'm gonna give you $4.50. You worked it.
But how did you get into all this stuff though?
Listen, Well, I always loved music, always loved, entertainment, always loved music. I was a big fan of the Jacksons. I mean, I always say just the Jacksons because that's where it started.
Yeah.
When you look at seeing the Jackson 5 cartoon, and I just remember those album covers getting mesmerized by the album covers. And I remember the one when they did the first album, the Jacksons, where they was in Philly with Gamble and Huff, and they had the Afros connected them when they came to Philly as the Jacksons, not the Jackson 5. And I remember flipping open the album and reading, and I'm 3-4 years old, and I would sit there with the Electric Factory in Sesame Street, and they would do these little sounding out things like, ba, at, fat, So I'd be sitting there, Jack, sons, and I would read and read. Now, of course, I didn't understand what an engineer was or mixed by, what that meant or anything, but I could read it. And I would take the album covers to school and for show and tell, and they would be like, oh, he's going to sing. And I'd flip it open and start reading. They'd be like, what the heck is he doing reading? And, of course, I didn't even know what the heck I was reading or what it meant. But later on in life, I would meet Gamble, Fonts, myself. I would meet all these people that I would read in the back of these album covers, and I would tell them like, "Yo, I learned how to read. Read your credits.
Okay. But then, so you mean at a young age, I mean, most people at a young age is either they're playing sports or they're into music and stuff. But from your point, did you ever try to become a singer or producer?
I couldn't sing. I was very I'm a Gemini, so we very like night and day, off and on.
Okay.
Like, look, Nate from Boyz II Men, we born on the same day. Paul McCartney's also born on that day. Fantastic writers. I could write, but I was not a singer, not a performer. I could dance a little bit, and I had dance groups. I had dance groups in high school. We used to do, New Edition routines, troop, and yeah, I was the guy who basically put all this stuff up on his wall and ended up working for everybody on his wall or in some capacity.
Okay.
Basically, where everybody said, oh, this is a hobby, I just kept going with it,
Okay. So in high school, you've got the Black Beats, you Connor 1 year, and then, I mean, he's already in Boyz II Men, but why did he leave Philly to
because he was it was a situation where they had to keep him alive. They want him to get in no trouble. You don't want to be on the verge of greatness and then you come home in a project, something crazy happens. So to keep him safe, his father lived out there. So,
Okay.
Yep.
And so
shout out to his sister Dorothy, his sister Dorothy. But yeah, we hit it off, man. And I always walked around. Listen, I had kente cloth and the beads.
yeah.
I was, I was Mr. X Clan, and he would always see that, whatever. And and because like I said, if you look at their first 12-inch, they got the big sheepskin jackets on, and they still got those African walking sticks and everything. And then but I always had a camera. I was always doing something. And he said, yo man, you need to come down to this video shoot. I'm like, really? And I remember I had like two of my friends with me. We went down, we cut school. Well, I didn't cut school. Everybody went down with me, cut school. I didn't cut school because I was too in good with the authorities at the school and everything like that. So when I had a letter signed from the directors and the producers,
Wow,
stating that that's where I was. Yeah. I just handed it to them. Hey, sign this real quick. They didn't know what the heck they were signing. Get out of here. Yeah, I was covered. A lot of people, they suffered when we got back, but it was a hell of an event. So I go down to this video shoot, and we get down there first. We see Sean, Mike, and Nate, and Charlie Mack from Will Smith.
Yeah. Yes,
and we see them down there, and we like, oh snap, we talking. So I got my my Motown Philly 12-inch, and they all signed it. But Wanye had already signed it, but Wanye didn't just sign it. Wanye wrote like a paragraph, and he wrote it. We fooled, so we did it. He did it in ink, but he pressed so hard that if you was to put a piece of paper over it and scribble, you could see what he wrote. But it was kind of touching what he wrote. And I just remember, at times in life, or sometimes when I feel bad or feel down, I would take that out of the frame and scratch over it and just read it, and it would like, lift me, pick me back up. But I used that 12-inch cover, them signatures, like a golden pass around Philadelphia.
In what way?
I would go to a concert I didn't have tickets for and be like, talk to security people and be like, yeah, look, I'm good friends with Boyz II Men. Look, and they would read what Wanye wrote and be like, "Yo, just go in this way. Don't get no trouble." You know.
Oh, what did he write?
Well, he basically wrote like, "Hey," he's like, "Look, man, thank you so much, man, and it's inspiring how you feel about your culture and your heritage, and don't ever change and don't lose that. And I know you're gonna do this and this, that, and the other." You know, it was really touching. But it's two 17-year-olds, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so he did that, man, and I never forgot it. And then I remember we went down to the video shoot, right? They did the first scene was they're riding in this black Mercedes that some white guy dropped off, because you only kids, you think everybody owns everything.
Yeah.
So they're like jet black Benz, Penny of Friends, and all the Philly station you need. So they do this little shot with the crane on South Street, and they in the little black Benz, and it's early, nobody's out yet, and they come back around and they're just like, on to the next scene, and we're like, what? Huh? That's it? So we're like, damn, like, how are we gonna get to the next scene? And everybody looked at me and said, Troy, you better do something. So I'm like, oh. Boyz II Men already went off in a Winnebago or whatever. And I walked over, I talked to Khalil Roundtree, and that's, if you might remember him, God, peace be upon him, he was the guy from Mr. Telephone Man, with the telephone head with the big beard.
Wow, okay.
And he's in the New Edition story. Khalil, he's the road manager, New Edition.
Yeah.
He was Boyz II Men's road manager. So I went over and said something to him. He just looked at me, and I was basically making small talk so that I could be seen talking to him, right? And he was impressed kind of that I knew his name. I made a little corny joke. He laughed. I patted him on the shoulder. Was like, ha, ha, ha. Went over to the guy in the other Winnebago. I said, yeah, Khalil, Boyz II Men road manager, he said he wanted us three to ride over to the next set. He said, who? I said, Boyz II Men road manager. I said, hey, what? And I yelled across the street, Khalil. And I held up my thumb, and he put his thumb up like, hey, hey. So listen, instead of us being cool, as soon as we leave the block, make a couple turns, what do? We in the back of the Winnebago taking pictures like idiots, So we get off, and they pull into this lot over by the School of Performing Arts in Philly. And we get out, and I see another bad creation step out of a Winnebago. Everybody's screaming. And then we step out, and everybody's like, who are they? I think somebody threw some trash at us, like, hey, wait, hold up. And then we walk to the next Winnebago, and I see Michael Bivins get out of there, and I just stared at him like, oh, snap. It's just got real. Wow. Michael Bivins from New Edition, it be BBD. I'm like, whoa, And I remember, he came out, I didn't even say anything to him. I just stared at him. I just looked at him like, oh, snap. Wow. Like, I can't believe this. I'm like, oh, man, this is amazing. Then I look over and I see Ronnie in the thing, and I just was like, he seemed very much, Mike had a serious look on his face, but Ronnie seemed more like, hey, calm. Say, hey, Ronnie, man, nice to meet you. So I had my When Will I See You Smile Again 12 minutes, and he signed it for me. Little did I know Ricky was sitting right, you can see Ricky's feet hanging down, but he didn't sign it, but he signed it for me, and he put 91 on it, and I eventually got all this stuff signed by them later, but it was just like I said, for me, I was like, I couldn't believe it. So I met another bad creation that day, and they were all little kids. I'm still cool with them to this day, man.
Wow. Yeah. Well, if they're doing anything, we need to get them on the show. But
yeah, you always see me every time I'm in Atlanta. I'm always with me and Chris. We always find each other, man. We always hang out.
So,
but like I said,
yeah, go ahead.
As like I said, he was a kid, but like I said, he never changed, man. He never changed, and I appreciated that. And I respected that. And then, like I said, so I'm just was out there, man, taking pictures, having a grand old time, man. I went back, I couldn't believe it. And then, later on, I would go to. I think Boyz II Men's first performance after the single came out, we were in this place not there anymore. It's called the Civic Center in Philadelphia. It was a big show. Boyz II Men performed, another bad creation performed. I think Michael Bivins came out and did the little parts that he did with on the songs. But it was Christopher Williams was there. I'll be sure was one of the hosts. It was like a Tracy Spencer. Wow. It was like a whole bunch of people there. But that was Boyz II Men's big coming out night in Philadelphia, and it was just an amazing time. And then after that, Juan had started, he would be in school, did not be in school, because they were going to Virginia constantly, working with Brooke Payne on their choreography and stuff, trying to get them ready.
Okay.
And we would go back and forth, and they'd be finishing stuff up on the album. And man, I remember when it dropped, like I said, I would be the guy carrying stuff on a little promo tour. I would do stuff like that.
Oh, so how did you already start to work with them, or?
Yeah. So I started with them, and what happened was when it was time for me to go to college, I did this. This girl I used to work with, she had this connection with MTV, so we would do like remote stuff for MTV. Like I would assemble a camera crew, me and my friend Susan Wiles, and we would go to DC sometimes. We would, or in Philly if something was going on, and we would do that stuff. So I was like slowly but surely just building my credits up, but I couldn't, with the money that was spent with me trying to get in school and stuff like that, I couldn't say I'm just going to run this way and do that, because it wasn't not long after that. God rest his soul, Khalil, he was murdered in Chicago. So it's a lot of situations throughout life where things like that had happened, and thank God I wasn't around, or but I maintained a relationship with Wanye and Mike Bass McCary from Boyz II Men, and and just throughout the years, and maintained. So it's always like a 360 moment every time I meet him. Like I always sometimes get like emotional every time I run into him, every time.
But
and then at times too, when they would do their solo projects, I would get the call, and I'd be, we'd be back in business.
So when at this time when you're doing some stuff with them, then you had a choice to go to college. What was the incentive to go to college and not just go full time into?
Listen. We were raised to, you go to school, and you always got something to fall back on and stuff like that. And I might have missed a lot of opportunities, but I'm gonna tell you what happened. By that second year, I think that everything they was teaching us about television and communications, I could actually teach, because actually what I could do was do it. I would take projects that I did in high school and I kept turning them in.
Okay.
And it was still light years ahead of what everybody else is doing and asking me how. So I was just like, I don't need this. And plus, on top of that, I run into Gerald Levert at one of these events. I met Full Force, and this is funny how things happen. We at this event. There was this group called Damien Dame. They were signed on LaFace.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Actually, I believe they were the first act on LaFace.
I believe so. Yeah.
They had that song called Exclusivity. They ended up. The irony of that group was they ended up dying on the same day, like a year apart.
Wow.
Yeah, but they had that song Exclusivity. I remember showing up at soundcheck. I see Tony Terry, ex-girlfriend, and I just grab a seat. I look over, I see this real cute girl. Her name was Rosanda. She had a little southern accent. She was cute. That was Chili from TLC.
Oh, okay.
And listen, it wasn't but maybe 9 months later that she was Chili from TLC, because actually, remember, anybody knows TLC story know that the C was for Crystal, not Chili.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, think of the irony of that. But I'm like, damn, this girl is cute, and I'm trying to talk to her, and I'm like, man. And then 9 months later, she signed my Ain't You Proud to Bet 12
Okay. Did you finish college?
No. I remember I left, man. I said, let me cut my losses. I was able to pay back the student loans very fast. I was able to pay them off very fast. But yeah, it was like, come on, I could do whatever it was I could do myself at this point. I really didn't feel the need. I mean, for what I was going into, I didn't feel the need to even waste any more money.
So when you quit college, what did you end up doing straight away?
Well, okay. I had a couple of acts that I was working with, that I was managing. And at the time, Philly was, started popping. Philly was getting a buzz. You had like producers and stuff, everything. This is slightly before the neo soul movement. So to give you an example, who we were performing with, As Yet.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was like we was doing show after show after show. This is before Mark Nelson was in the group, because Mark Nelson didn't come. I mean, I think they got signed and they put Mark Nelson in the group.
Yeah, that was the case. Yeah. But who were you managing? When
these were acts that you're gonna laugh at this. What happened? Hiram Hicks, that managed Belle Biv DeVoe, and Road managed New Edition on the Heartbreak time. We had a holding deal with his H Records that was on Warner Brothers. So like I said, it was a lot of almost and things like that. But
Okay.
you know, being 18, 19 years old and this stuff happening, and I didn't have to use nobody's name or anything, you know. Yeah, so it was man, listen, I was making little moves, and then I was, you know, I started getting heavy on the pictures and stuff. I remember we were one time we were in DC, and I remember I had these press kits that I put together, and I run into D from Low Key and Jelly Bean from The Time.
Okay.
Now Jelly Bean is he did Supernatural for New Edition, Crucial on the Eddie Heartbreak album. Supernatural was on the Ghostbusters soundtrack. And yeah, he did Crucial on the Eddie Heartbreak album. It was one of my favorite songs, whatever. But that's, you know, he was the drummer for The Time.
Yeah.
Jelly Bean Johnson is like 6'7". That guy is big.
Wow.
So he looks at it, he's like, yo, who put this together? I'm like, I did. You know what I mean? He was like, yo, look. And then him and D was like, you know, they gave me the address to Flight Time in Adena, Minnesota, and the lady to talk to and everything like that. So I took, and you know, and he was like, just in case, you know, before we get back or whatever like that, send this to her, tell her, you know. So we was, you know, I was shipping product out to them. I sent the stuff to Hiram, and I remember I was working at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and he called me. He beat me. We had the pages back then.
Yeah, pages. Yeah.
He said, "It's a Hiram." I'm like, okay. You know what I mean? He's like, Hiram Hicks. I was like, really now? You know, he was like, hey, look, I like the kids. You know, I need to we meet you tomorrow. You know, we went down there. It was crazy, man. It was crazy. We had no more shows, nothing to say. We had to wait. Unfortunately, what happened was there was a group called Good to Go. There was these, I think there were like 4 white girls. Warner Brothers, they decided to go with them first. They failed miserably, and there was no second try or nothing, you know. That was that. Yeah.
Wow.
So such is life. But you know, I started circulating, doing little promotional work for A&M Records in the Mid-Atlantic region. I started working my way up to New York, and then I run into Left Eye. Started doing some work when she had Left Eye Productions, and you know, like I said, Black was the group that came out of that. I was around, you know, all of that in the beginning.
But what are you doing at this time? Because are you not filming?
I started getting heavy on the photography.
Okay.
Yeah, because I had to do something that I had to rely on me, and couldn't wait on anybody else's feelings or things like that. Because I started to notice as the years are going by, if somebody was coming with me, I'll be waiting on them. You show up late, that's a wasted opportunity, missed opportunity. I ain't go, you know. So I said, whatever I do has to be relying on me. Now I was managing artists that when they decide they don't want to sing no more, they don't want to do this anymore. Well, guess who got that studio bill still? Me. So, you know, I had to do something that was going to be me, and me responsible for me. And that's how that happened. And so everybody used to always call me Wonder Boy Troy and stuff like that. Because it happened because the only reason why I really started taking pictures was because I was always saying to myself, nobody's gonna believe this.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was always like, nobody's gonna believe this. So I would take pictures. And you know, yeah, that's
what were you doing with your pictures when you take them? Were you just saving them I
had this big photo album, and I used to leave it at Wanye's studio. So people would call me up and be like, hey, can I get this? And you know, then I started selling the pictures. Then I started what was the next move? Kango, God rest his soul, from UTFO.
Yeah.
We were friends. Like he was legitimately like a brother, like a straight up brother. I met him in 1992. And we just hit it off, man. I met him and his wife over a friend of mine that I went to school with, house. And Wanye was there that night. And you know, I got this picture of us 3 together and everything like that. But me and Kango, we just kept in touch. I would go up there, hang out for the weekend. He'd be in the studio working with, you know, with whoever, because he went, you know, during UTFO, after UTFO, and whenever he was producing Whistle and, you know, a lot of other acts. And I would go up there. So one day I bought a photo album with me. And he saw some of these pictures. He was like, yo, man, you need to submit these to, you know, such and such here. This is the guy from Black Beat Magazine. His name was Rudy. I can't remember his last name. Forgive me. And I started doing that. Then, you know, I started with that, this magazine called One Nut in Connecticut. And then Black Beat, Right On. then Vibe, Source. So and I happen to be the guy who was just everywhere at all times. Like that's like I said, hence the thing, Wonder Boy, Wonderful Troy. But I became so great, like people would just see me like, "Yo, let him in. He's good. He's cool."
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I see that with a guy called Johnny Nunez. I see how.
Yeah, he was New York,
Yeah.
and strictly like in a lot of like heavy hip hop. Then you have oh man, I don't want to mess up this. But there's him, and there's a lot of people, and they were heavy into hip hop, strictly hip hop. I was sports, comedy, music, all facets of it.
But at that time, did you think that being a celebrity, paparazzi, how they look, but celebrity?
Whoa! Not
paparazzi, but celebrity.
I had relationships, so they trusted me, and I ain't never been crazy. And I worked for some scandalous people, and I worked for some great people, controversial people. But I was straight up.
Yeah, but then at this time, because you were saving the pictures and put them in an album. Where was the money coming from before Kango Kid told you about getting this sold out? What were you still?
Oh no. He told me, he put me onto the magazines. He actually plugged me in to the magazines.
Oh no, but prior to him telling you this though, how were you surviving this hanging out?
Oh, listen. I would get hired. And I would just, and it was funny because my son was real little at the time. I'd bring him with me, but I would get hired. I mean, the radio stations, would listen. Some trusted Wi-Fi call me everywhere man, but I was legitimately everywhere man. I worked every weekend religiously, and I would make enough money on the weekend. I didn't have to work during the week.
Oh.
I would take jobs here and there, but it was not a necessity, and things like that. It was like I would work for the two black radio stations in Philadelphia, Power 99, and then WDS, then corporate mergers, they was together. But then in 100.3 or 103.9 came along. Yeah, I was.
And they would send you to events, take the pictures, and what were they?
Right. I was the event photographer, not just the thing. And then people come in, they see me, but they always feel comfortable because it was me. Like I started working with Gerald Levert in 92. Like I legitimately was in awe when I met him. I met him and Mark and Sean at the same time, but I told you I was going, I'm gonna work with you one day. And he just did that. Yes, you are. You know what I mean? Yes, you are, little guy. You're gonna work with me one day. And my first gig was what? Minute Large Use Me video.
So what were you doing? Were you actually shooting the video? Or?
No, I worked on a set. I worked on that set. I had worked at this place called Metropolis. It's not there anymore. It's called Metropolis Studios in Philly. And I had gotten so cool with the people and this company. When you made the comment the other day about Hype Williams, and I said Classic Concepts. Well, Lionel C. Martin,
yeah.
I used to watch those videos that he used to do, and I used to be like, "Yo, that's how I want to do it." And actually, I'm walking into the studio one day, and I see him in the lobby, and he's a real humble guy. A lot of people don't know who he is, and I took 2 steps. I'm like, Lionel? He was like, hey. And I just started talking because I was such a fan and he couldn't believe it. Met the producers and everything. Now these white people that have to meet with them to get the gig to do this video, they're like thinking they don't know what, they don't understand the coach, they don't know what. And then here go me, Mr. Buffer, who comes in, and I introduced Lionel to everybody at the, and I pretty much secured the deal. And 3 days later, we shooting. And on that day, I wore many hats that day, but wow. I did do the photography, things like that. And after that, I talked with Gerald for a minute or whatever. And yeah, I used to go on the road sometimes with him, with Gerald Levert. Yep.
So did you ever think about, okay, I'm doing photography, can I move into becoming a video director like Lionel C. Martin?
Well, I'm gonna tell you this, what I learned from working on, we did videos, like I casted Simpin' Ain't Easy for Boyz II Men, that actually was on the White Man Can't Jump soundtrack. Okay. So I remember, you submit your invoice And I think they paid us on like a net 45. And I just remember getting 2 checks, you know what I mean? I remember getting 2 checks. I was like, woohoo, until, it was time to pay taxes on it. And I was like, oh.
Okay.
But, it was, like I said, it was interesting, but I just happened to be always had to get the gab. And I used to read a lot of books too. And I remember, and always listen to quotes and things that people would say. And it was like, so I would always stay stored with information so that if I did meet somebody, if I had 15 seconds or 25 seconds, I was going to press the living hell out of them.
Wow.
So that way, when I went to walk with it, hey, come back here, little guy, come here, I always was blessed with that gift. And, I thank God I never lost it,
How did your relationship with Wanya and Boyz II Men over the years then? What when with all this stuff happening, how were you still keeping in touch? And
well, before cell phones and stuff like that, whenever he was home, I would get a call. He would call me, we'd hang out a little bit, or, I call him if I was around, and stuff like that. But you got to remember this too. I was cool with Mike too. So, yeah. So Mike, his mother, his brother, and I actually too, a large part of how I got into the sports world was Mike McCarry's cousin, Mike Harris. I went to work with him. Now, I seen Mike Harris as the guy who hooked Brandy and Kobe up for the prom.
Okay.
Yeah, so I saw Mike on BET with Kobe Bryant. He was a rookie with the Lakers. He's a little young kid or whatever. And I was at the Vibe Music Seminar, and I think that was Vibe Music Seminar 96. Usher just came out with You Make Me Want to Lead the One I'm With. Now, Usher's about to go on the brink, about to be a star. And he comes out, walks the runway, does this crazy little glide across the stage. He come out of sneakers, crowd goes crazy, and I'm going to the back. And as I look through the curtain, I see Big Mike, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta introduce myself. Then this kid bumps into me. You see my sneakers? I'm like, Usher, your sneakers are over there. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, so I go in, and I'm like, yo, you Big Mike Harris. I'm like, Mike's cousin from Boyz II Men. I'm like, this. So I'm back there, whatever, Usher's looming around in the back, and everything. And then I see Tretch from Naughty by Nature. And I'm like, oh, because I got a funny story with Naughty by Nature too.
Okay.
Because I was on the brink of them is when I met them. I actually met them when they were with Queen Latifah, when Tupac was with Digital Underground. It was a show. They was on a tour with Public Enemy. And I seen them on stage because they were like hype men at the time, with Queen Latifah. But what they was wearing made them really stand out, because I like, damn, I wouldn't be one to go to dark alley with them guys. We go to the bathroom in the mezzanine of the Spectrum, and we like, oh snap, wasn't y'all just on stage? So everybody wait till they wash their hands, and we're like, yeah. And they telling us about, we got this song coming out. I at the time was still kind of like shook, like kind of scared, like Tretch was real, he looked like he break, you know what I mean? And I'm like, man, Vinny looked like Mike Tyson. I was like, oh man.
It's true.
So I just remember them saying, like, we got this song about to drop, and I couldn't remember if the song was called Naughty by Nature or the song was called OPP. But later on, as time would tell, I remember it coming on the radio. I'm like, hey, this that group OPP. They like, no, the group is called Naughty by Nature. The song is called Naughty by Nature. The group is called OPP. They're from North Jersey, But they, yeah, man, it was like crazy. So I met Tretch then. I met Naughty by Nature then. After Celebrity Basketball game, we run into each other and we talking about that. Now this time, OPP and blew up worldwide, and it's the biggest record ever, the biggest group on the planet. Tretch driving a 4Runner, we out in the back of, after one of Charlie Mack's famous Celebrity Basketball games, and we just chopping it up and everything like that. Tretch gave me his information. Vinny gave me his information. KG gave me his information. KG was actually going to sign one of my acts too, because Vinny said, look, KG's got this production thing with Motown. You got to get with him, and took us over, introduced us again, and but we forged the bond that day, with Tretch. We was like the one, and I just remember something too that I never forget that day. That day I met Ecstasy from Houdini, God rest his soul, because it's a picture of me and him. I'm looking all young and he looking all young and everything. And I just remember at that time, Houdini had no hit record out or nothing like that. But the way that Ecstasy carried himself, they were mobbing him You understand what I'm saying?
Wow.
They were mobbing him because he still had that star, know, that aura, that image, and he was just cool out there signing autographs, taking pictures, and we talked. I mean, when we got done talking that day, I think the sun went down. It was like bright in the afternoon. But like I said, so listen, I was nonstop networking and hustling. I always found a way, always found a gig, always found something to get me to the next. And now I know I went somewhere with that because we was talking about Naughty, but no, back to the Vibe Music Seminar.
Yeah.
So Fred sees me and he's like, Troy, and he dapped me up to hug me, whatever. So I stopped, took a picture, and then Usher wanted to get in the picture and everything. And I'm like, oh, okay, kid, come on, get the picture, But I remember I told Usher, I said, I see what you're doing. And I'm looking at the progression from that video, you make one leave on a wit and what he's doing out there. And I was like, I know you about to blow up. I know this is it for you. You know what I mean? And I got over, I met with, when Mike saw the way that Tretch responded to me, he was like, said, well, I know. I said, man, I'm from Philly, man, this, that, and the other. So he was like, look, I got to run because he went with Usher to the Apollo. He said, I got to run. He said, but I want you to call me. He said, I'll be back in my office on Monday. Come by. I went up working for Big Mike for 2 years, man. We traveled all over the country. I mean, worked with so many athletes, so many artists, music artists and stuff like that. That's where I actually met SWV through him. You told me you got your cousin Christian Okoye.
The Nigerian man.
Yeah, well, we know Jerome Bettis with the bus with the Steelers.
Yeah, the Steelers.
I did work with all types of people through Big Mike.
So
boxers, I mean, you name it. I was all over the place with him.
But then, did you then have in your mind long term? This is I'm doing all this stuff, but in the long term, this is what I want to do. I wanted to either have my own production where I'm signing acts, or be a director, or be a manager.
I wanted all of those things, but when you're on the inside, when you can be a firewall, you see how things run and things operate, you don't want it no more.
Wow, how come?
Because it's a dog eat dog. I mean, just cold, and man, a good-hearted person can get broken, and I've seen it. I witnessed it, and a lot of times I know that could have been me. But also too, when you're young and you're naive, man, that's how I understand how all these people always get got time after time. You're young, you're naive, you want it, you think you want it, and then you get it and be like, man.
So you were saying that you weren't as ruthless to be on the inside to do this stuff. So you just thought, I'm okay being a friend and being a fly on the wall, but to actually try and negotiate it,
listen, not me being so much. I'm saying me being that I'm sitting in these meetings. I'm in these meetings. I'm up at the magazine place. I'm up at the media. I'm seeing how these people operate, and I'm just like, yo, this can't be me. This is not who I was raised to be. Like, I just couldn't be it. And then to see they build people up and destroy them, man, I just said, hey, I can't be that. Like, all people start saying, you should write a book. You should write a book. And I said, well, when I do write a book, it's going to be all positive, nothing negative. There's too much of that stuff up. I mean, it's like the things that I can say about people. I would make Wendy Williams look like a damn, like a little flag girl for the marching band. And it wouldn't even be rumors. This would be actual stuff that I witnessed, And you shout out to Wendy Williams. I did work for her too. I'm actually in the book. Like, hey, I got magazines, New York bestsellers, you name it, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I think about the things that I've done and the places I've been, I'd be like, wow,
Yeah, but the thing you mentioned about the inside now. When I went to college in Alabama, then and Wisconsin briefly, then worked in LA, and before I moved over, I was working at Edmonds Entertainment down in Hollywood. So for Tracy Edmonds.
Tracy
Edmonds. So and at the time we were I was working in marketing and promotion. So we had Third Story. Nokia was the A&R for Def Jam, and so they had a production deal with Def Jam. So I was working in that environment, and just hearing, at the time John B had not released anything, and I can't remember the name of the girl group that they had signed up, but it's somehow I was going to these industry parties, seeing Mike Tyson, seeing Tracy Ellis when she was on Girlfriends, but Mike, Faith, going to all these parties, and I realized that it just didn't sit right with me. There was something about,
Yep.
how they
Yep.
operate, the
Yep.
people that were operating. I just felt so convicted that I had to leave the environment, and it just felt really. It didn't feel like a kind of place where if you're good natured and good hearted, that you needed to make big compromises in order to
right.
move around.
Yeah, I've seen good people turn into straight a-holes, good people. I'm talking about people that I came up with. Like legitimately, I would see them and, I guess since I elevated past the photographer status, kind of looked down on me at times, which I was just like, I'm happy though. I can sleep at night. At peace. Can you do that? And and it's like, and two, what I didn't like, things I didn't like about the industry was that the way that Black music is just like I said, it's just a small fraction of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that Black music was discarded, the way that Black artists, legendary artists, were pushed aside, the way that up and coming artists never looked out for the people who paved the way for them. I stuff like that, I just couldn't understand. It's like one of the things that I've done and always do is I'll always try to reconnect people. I'll always try to keep people, together, because it's an unnatural situation to put crabs in the barrel. That's why crabs respond that way. But a lot of people don't look out. A lot of artists don't look out for other artists. A lot of comedians don't look out for other comedians. A lot of comedians hate other comedians, and can't wait for them to fall so they can try to step into their spot. A lot of artists that have information don't, they don't use it. They don't do it. They don't look out for it, and it's really sad. It's really sad.
Well, I mean, being from the inside now, and I'll say that so when I started this, it was really just Father MC and Timmy Gatlin were my first two guests. Then with Father MC,
listen, I'm a big Timmy Gatlin fan. Big Timmy Gatlin fan. I'm a fan of his music, his writing, and that masterpiece he did with that Guy first album is just,
yeah.
Like I said, history. You can't look. You can do whatever you want, try to change. If you can't change that Timmy's on that first album cover, and Timmy wrote like what 7 out of 9, and 7 out of 9 are unforgettable records that go nowhere.
Yeah, but the thing is that when I talked to him, because I was one of those fans like most people who didn't understand, like, okay, the guy on this picture is not the guy in the video, and we never heard anything. So when I was
think about it, right?
Yeah, so when I was blessed to talk to him, I said, I'm going to talk to you as a fan, just trying to be curious. So it was just learning and, hearing his story. I was like, wow, we didn't realize. Then I started to interview everybody else, and they're telling me all these stories about, we got robbed and stuff. And as a fan, you're on the inside, so you're seeing this, but we don't see any of this stuff. We didn't know that they always sat, Mr. Dalvin at Jodeci says, we could make all this music, but we saw no money at Uptown. They took all our money. Right. So hence we needed to go to Death Row to
I got one funny for you too, because I remember Hammer had a tour and he had like Boyz II Men, Jodeci, and TLC on it.
Yeah, I heard he had that big tour.
So there was, I think it was Hammer's brother who was really, letting them know like, hey, this is what you should get, this is what you deserve. And when people decided they had to make a move, and Suge Knight was heavy into Jodeci's situation to get them corrected, because we all we see is, think about it, this was pre-internet, and let's just take it back to Timmy. When Timmy and that situation happened, remember the media is like what 3 to 4 or 5 months behind.
Yeah.
They do everything in advance so that when stuff drops, it looked like it's right now, and a lot of stuff you're reading is old.
Yeah, and
there was no fast way to get the information around.
Yeah.
So I can see, and all you see is the glitz and the glamour. Like, think about when you realize that Teddy Riley at one point produced like 60% of the hip hop in the R&B, and then you be like, he had no money, or you think, and you see Aaron with the rings on and the fly suits, and you're like, he had no money. But then when you look at that Guy album and you see the Guy logo, because I was heavy into imagery and logos and things like that, and I realized that their logo was a griffin. Gene Griffin. I said, how gangster is that? How gangster is that? That this man went, they was already signed. He came in and try to have them sign new paperwork.
Yeah.
Basically, give them executive control over everything. And Timmy didn't sign it. Smart guy like Ice Cube didn't sign it. Yeah, and they had to go through him to get all the releases, and he got paid. He was the only one that got paid off that album.
That's for me. That's been heartbreaking doing these interviews because the more I keep hearing them from Gina Thompson stuff, it's hard. But for you, you knew you were seeing all this stuff from the inside. How did you keep yourself? Because it's been hard. I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
For a year and a half, it was hard just to hear the stuff. I'm getting depressed listening to all this stuff. For you, how was it then watching it and seeing it live and seeing?
It was heartbreaking because you got to remember, this was my life. Like I'm talking about the pictures on the walls, and then you ground these people, you see things, and you just like, this can't be serious. Like you should have this, you should have that, and you see some of these artists don't have it. Yeah. Some of these producers, they don't have it, and what I would always provide was a business sense of things. Like, okay, you got to stop sampling. Because that's where the bulk of your money's flying out the window. Mm. Like you could have a triple platinum album. You got 10 songs, 10 samples, but you got a bunch of estates or old guys collecting all of the money, all of the publishing. You understand what I'm saying? And it's like, hip hop was bred out of necessity. It was bred out of the fact that they took out the music programs. So you had to get creative. You had to steal electricity from the light pole. Mm. You had to use those break beats, but it was to a point where it was like, common sense, you're going to have to start, either replaying these things and doing interpretations of it. But it was like, when things got out of control, you start seeing where, okay, then record companies started using production companies, and production companies was nothing but a buffer so that when they realize what's going wrong, they can't come to the record company and say, where's my money? Record company said, you better talk to that production company. And if you look, stuff like that happened. Troop was signed to a production company, then to Atlantic Records. So you'd be mad at Atlantic Records all day, but Atlantic Records cut a check to that production company. You understand what I'm saying?
And they give them, so they I think when I interviewed 112, Mike and Slim, they said, look, we were signed to Carillion, and through Carillion signed to Bad Boy, even though, but as if Bad Boy realized, we're going to sign you to this production company so you can deal with them there. Yep. They'll get $1 million from Arista. By the time it gets to them, it's like
250. Yep. And then
but they have to pay.
Then it's going to be here, guys. Here's $2,500 a piece. All of y'all spend it in one place.
Yeah, but you have to still pay back that $1 million.
Yeah, you still got to pay back that $1 million. Yep. It's insane. And it's a dirty game because this is why the industry preys on youth. You understand what I'm saying? They know that their families don't know nothing about the business.
Yeah.
They know that they see the glitz and glamour, but I get that money. So they encourage, okay, we sign. And then, 5 years later, child come back home and his career's over and he got to look forward to the rest of his life. And everybody go, where's your money at?
But what stopped you from becoming, because that's where managers are born from, because managers are the guys who know everyone. And so you could then say, if you got a good group, you could take them to the right people, but make a bigger slice of the pie.
I used to think there were some good people in this industry in those positions, but they're really not. I used to understand why, artists, sometimes their careers in held in jeopardy by somebody sitting at a label that don't understand them and really don't care, but has a job to do, and his job and everything is to the label. You got situations where like I said, everybody I met in those positions, not the artists themselves, but the hierarchy, it was just not a good look. It was just a bunch of, taking lambs to the slaughter because off the rip, you're going to take a bad deal, no matter how you look at it. And renegotiating that bad deal is hard. It's going to cost. Like I said, I look at, there's very few people who have successfully made it off of a record deal. Very few. If I did like this, I would have 2 fingers left.
Wow.
Yeah. And think about it. They get everybody. If Prince had to write slave on his face and change his name, all the money he made for Warner Brothers, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And he didn't own Purple Rain. He didn't own the movie, nor did he own the soundtrack. The masters to that at all.
Wow.
Do you know how many hundreds of millions of dollars that thing yielded from then to now? It's unbelievable.
Yeah. But then when in your position, when you're knowing this stuff and you come into contact with new artists, are you in any position to advise them, to give them like, man, you better be careful, don't sign this, or
yeah, listen, I've been doing that for over 20 years. Some listen, some don't, you know, but no sweat off my brow. I speak my mind, and I don't care. You know, I speak my mind. I don't care.
So the ones who have listened, though, what's been the transformation or change for them?
I don't think nobody truly listened. You got to remember, when you're the youngest guy, shortest guy, youngest guy, you know. But if I was Suge Height size and said it, they'd be like, all right.
No, but nobody takes good information at that stage, because it's like, unless you're.
I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not that. It's embarrassment. Nobody want to admit it. It's embarrassment. I remember a young rapper was in a group called Legal. Legal had a gold album on Rowdy Records. I think it was Dallas Austin's first
Rowdy Records, yeah.
First act. It was called Legal. Mr. Malik, I remember he told me one time that he got emancipated at 16 years old as an adult, a legal entity.
Mm.
He never signed his publishing over to Dallas, never signed it over to Clive Davis. He did a record like This and Like That went gold with Monica. He got paid. He did a song with Snoop on the Doggy Style album that sold at that time 5 million copies. He did a song on the Dog Pound, 2.5. The song he did, I think he did with Pac, never got released or whatever, but he was a child that never really had to worry about working because he owned his publishing.
Wow.
You understand what I'm saying? Multi-platinum plaques, multi-platinum albums. He's getting paid over and over and over because he never relinquished his publishing rights. Who on death row do you know that can say that? You understand what I'm saying? Remember, Snoop didn't even know what publishing was. He said that in an interview.
Mm.
Gaz eventually learned what it was. Corrupted, it's like, yo, and shout out to Dog Pound. I used to work for Corrupt for years. Yeah, yep. Every time I run into Corrupt, it's like a family reunion. He got a street named after him in Philly and everything. But yeah, man, when he left Death Row, I met him, and back again with A&M Records. I was working with him for like 2 years.
Well, you spoke earlier. You started by talking about 1 year and Boyz II Men, and Dallas came out recently to he said he working with them on the first album, but then by the second album, he gave them that they're difficult to work with, and so unfortunately that gave a negative perception about the guys. For us, the fans, because we're like, no, we only see them in the studio, we only see them release music, and they always have this wholesome stuff. But when you have someone like Dallas openly saying, yeah, that they got their egos got too big, and the worst.
Okay, let me say this: Dallas Austin was a teenager. He was a teenager working with them. Remember, he worked with Joyce Irby from Climax. Okay, he signed.
Yes, I heard she signed him. Yes,
to Diva One Productions. He made her a multi-millionaire.
Oh.
He was a child that signed to her. He made her a multi-millionaire. So, okay. Dallas Austin was a kid. He was Atlanta. 4 guys from Philly. They was young. I think Nate and Mike might have been older than Dallas. They come back multi-millionaires. He's still producing, and he getting money thrown at him, and he's, very successful with TLC's first album. Dallas is, he's doing the damn thing. He's a different person now, and they're a different person. But this is the thing you got to ask Dallas. What state of mind was he in when they was difficult to work with? Could it be that Dallas was the person that was difficult to work with? You understand what I'm saying? Did they come in clear-headed and sober? Was he sober? This is the things you got to ask yourself.
Yeah.
it always sounds good when it's coming from one person until you do the background.
Yeah.
I always say this. Sometimes you can meet people and you could be like, yo, that person's a really genuine person. You could tell. Some people you be like, yeah, the person was a-hole. It's all about when you meet them and where you meet them.
Yeah, but then, you know, subsequently, I listened to an interview that the three guys did with Quest, because I think they all went to high school.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I met Quest at the Boyz Men video shoot.
Yeah, I think he said he was in that shoot. And
he was in it. Yep, he was in it.
Yeah.
Yep, he was. I met him down there. But the Roots, man, I remember back when it was called the Square Roots, all over Philadelphia. We're dragging them instruments around. Scott Storch, the multi-Grammy,
Yeah.
Scott Storch was the keyboard player.
Yeah, no, he mentioned it, but what they did say was, because Babyface says no, they didn't want to record. They didn't want I'll Make Love to You on their second album, and the record label had to really push that, and everyone's like, what? That was one of their biggest hits. But then Babyface had to clarify, because it made it seem as if they were just being like big-headed.
Right,
he said, look, then Nate says, look, we wrote everything on the first album by one song. We learned publishing. We wanted to showcase our writing. The label didn't just wanted us to be singers. So of course it was like, well, come on, we wrote our first album, let's continue writing this album. So it was like, either you have I Make Love to You or the song they wrote. So they wanted to fight for their song, not this in Babyface's stuff.
That's his business, That's his business.
But then unfortunately, when these stories come out, as they've been recently, it gives the impression that these guys weren't the golden good guys. We know that it's when you have a lot of these things from Dallas and other ones saying these things, it then casts a negative image on the guys who we never see and stuff. And then often, they throw in, oh, they kicked Mike out the group and they didn't want him back, and then they rather split the money three ways. Unfortunately, it's created that negative stuff. You just said
right. No, I get it, and I can see the impact that it's actually had in certain circles. But let me just say this: the Force MDs, when Dave did Tender Love, like other artists was recording that song. Actually, they were supposed to be in the movie Crush Groove. Russell and them decided to go with New Edition, but they ended up with the song. The song Tender Love, like other artists recorded it, it just didn't work. The lady at Tommy Boy had the people, owed them a favor. They send them out there. Jesse D is going ape crap in the studio because guess what? There were no drums in Tender Love. And he was just thinking, this is not going to work. And that song is one of the biggest songs in their career.
Yeah.
Keep them working to this day. You understand what I'm saying? Artists don't always know. They don't always know. Some of the biggest records was records they couldn't stand, or records they didn't think was going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. I think there's something wrong with the volume of your phone. It just changed.
Uh-oh. Am I there? Am I there? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Or is that my voice?
No, it just felt like it just switched all of a sudden, like you're using a microphone, not speakers, headbuds or something.
Okay, Bluetooth, something like that now. Yeah, am I clear now? Am I good?
Not as clear as you were when we started off. I don't know if. I don't know if you want to leave and come back. I don't, because sometimes it's.
All right. How do I do that?
Okay. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I do this. Hold on.
Or maybe. All right. There we go.
Yeah.
Now, look, and remember this. I'm telling you, like, not what I heard, whatever. I'm telling you, from being around and seeing these things. Like I said, not all the time the artists know. It's a lot of things that go into a hit record, but when a label stand behind a song and they believe in the song, it's it's usually out of the park.
Yeah. So another relationship that we know that I know that you formed is with Bow-Legged Lou. I mean, how did that connection come out?
Met Bow-Legged Lou, 91, Gerald Levert, everybody the same day. Chili from TLC, Tony Terry, everybody that same day. But let me tell you, first, I remember I backed up and I saw Paul Anthony and I'm like, oh Lord, Paul Anthony's the one with the muscles, I'm trying to like look away. He said, you know, you want to take a picture? I was like, yeah, okay. So I look like a deer in the headlights in the picture, like, you know what I mean? And I see Lou, and he's all just animated, and just like he, you know, just like you imagine he is. He was all animated and everything like that. And I was like, oh man, you know, I'm just talking, but we on the side of the stage, and I know he really can't hear me. He whips out a picture. It was like 5 out of 6 members of Full Force there, so it looked like 19 people. But I was like, he whipped out this little picture. Well, this little picture, it wasn't 8 by 10, it was like a 5 by 7. And they all signed it and gave it to me. And I was like, thanks, you know. So later on at night, we interviewed ex-girlfriend. They were still in the room. And then after the interview, they all went to the limos. Baby Jerry from Full Force had left he left his jacket with his wallet in it, wow. Right? I was like, oh, snap. I looked at the thing, I saw the ID, and I ran downstairs, and I'm like looking at all the limos, and I'm like, you know, damn. Then the last limo knocked on the window. They rolled it down. I'm like, baby Jerry, you left the jacket, man. I was like, your wallet's in there, man. All the money, it's still there, man. Look at it. You know what I mean? He was like, thanks, man. He was like, thank you. And Bow-Legged Lou gave me his card, you know. So what I did when I got home the next day is I wrote him a letter. He called me. My mom answered the phone. And the next day, she's like, some guy named Lou with bow legs called. I'm like, what? She said, Lou with legs of, you know, she was like, something like that. I said, Mom, that's the guy from House Party with the squeaky voice. She was like, wait, he called here? I'm like, Mom, he called, that was him. So we was playing phone tag for a minute, but he wrote me back and sent me, you know, a bunch of stuff and everything. But he wrote me back saying thank you, you know, and everything like that. And we just, man, look, we was pen pals. You know, calling, you know, this, that, and the other. And I mean, I remember I used to call the house, and his son, you know, Lou Star would answer the phone. He was a little kid, like, you know, and I'd be like, who's this, Bow-Legged Little Lou? He like, yeah, you know, and he used to have me dying. But like I said, that's how far, you know, and that's where it started. I met Kango. Me and Kango was cool, but I had already met Lou. I'd already met Full Force, you know, but, and we just, let me tell you, when I started stepping into New York, right? Even though Jersey, Philly, I had that sold up. When I started walking in New York, I made it a point to be everywhere and everything. And I put that groundwork in. And I think Lou, man, just got tired of seeing me, you know, everything. Hey, you know, and there I go again, you know, there I go again. And, you know, at this time, I started working for Wendy Williams, the notorious Wendy Williams.
Okay.
I pray her health, and I pray, you know, she gets everything right and everything back. But yeah, but you know, I was in New York so much that, and I would always see him. And this was at the point where Full Force was about to take back over the world.
Wow.
They had started producing.
Oh yeah, with the Backstreet Boys and
NSYNC, and at the time, I mean, I didn't even know who none of these people were. Like, oh, that's what's up, okay. You know, I just remember they was producing at the time. They were producing this girl named Yvette Michelle that Funkmaster Flex had signed to RCA, and like I said, I just started seeing them all over the place, man. And you know, and we just like I said, we just hit it off. But Paul Anthony, the funny story about Paul Anthony, one day we were in Indianapolis in the airport, and he just broke out in a conversation with me, and the whole time I'm looking like, Paul, I didn't even know you knew who I was. Come on. Paul's a Virgo, and he don't say much. Okay. You know, he don't say much, and you know, he just had to, you know. And me and Paul's tight like grits, man. We went, you know, we go places, we do a lot of stuff. Sometimes it's me and him. Sometimes, you know, it's the three brothers or whatever. But man, Lou, you know, I'm cool with his kids, his mother. You know, he always say when he becomes he ain't just you know, he becomes a friend, and you know. Yeah, we legitimately were, you know, just like with the Force MDs, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, when you help
Mercury, and they just got a street named after them in Staten Island.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah, people, yeah, because when you helped me get the interview with Bow-Legged Lou, that then led me to be able to interview Cassidy. So, so that was really helpful. The other people that that I see associated with you is with New Edition.
Yeah,
you start off with Boyz II Men, but how did that connection with New Edition sort of come about?
all facets of New Edition. I met Ralph at a stage play. He was doing a stage play, and I remember I came down in between. They had an afternoon show and they had like an evening show. I came down to the in between thing, and I remember his security guard was like, sitting by the door. It was just his security dude.
Wow.
I had a hat and an overcoat, some stuff I got from the Western store, and I was like, hey man, I got some, stuff, Ralph, whatever. And he yells up, Ralph, yo, it's dude down here, But that was the first time I met Ralph. And now to Black America, Ralph is like the second coming of Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll be like tripping, like, you know what I mean? And I actually met Bobby on the Home Again tour.
No, but
I met Bobby and I met Whitney that same night.
But who did you meet first? You met Ralph first?
No, Mike. I met Mike.
You met Mike.
Days. Yeah.
But then did you connect? Did you continue with Mike and BBD,
no,
or did you?
Actually, no, I didn't. But what I always say is that because of Mike is the reason really why it was believable. Because to Boyz II Men, did I think any of this stuff was real or it could happen? But it's really through Mike. Like I remember on a Sip It Ain't Easy video, I remember sitting on the set. They looked at me and they looked at him, and it was like, and they took and hoisted me up on the top of the and made me sit on the basketball rim to size me up, to size him up, so he didn't have to do it until it was time to do it. You know what I mean? But basically, if the basket would have fell, you know what I mean? Then they did the scene in the theater. They had me sitting in this spot, and doing everything, like I was just sitting as double and stuff like that. But
okay,
I was always laughing at that, but I always tell Mike, every chance I get, like, you do it. If it wasn't for you, like, you don't know, like, you open up a doorway for one person, but that led a lot of people in. That started a lot of extra careers. Like I always do the breakdown. Like I say, if you take Michael Jackson out of the industry, if he never happens, look at what happens. Look at all the people that don't happen.
Yeah.
Off of his wave, off of what he did and what Jackson 5 put down, look at all the opportunities that happen for other groups and other people. And then look at, if you take New Edition away, then you start looking at the breakdown of all the groups that don't happen, But so I met Mike, Ronnie, then Bobby on the Home Again tour. I remember Ralph just getting mobbed out of there. I mean, they were like pulling at it. It was like, they carried him out, like, and he was just, and they was just tearing at him. It was like, I was like, holy, it was.
But
insane.
on the Home Again tour, was he the big? Who's the big? I mean, because I remember when they came to Milwaukee, and I was in college in Milwaukee. So when it was Keith Sweat, 702
was out
Blackstreet.
there. So, look, 702 was out there. They were still turning over the chairs.
They
were out there so early that I remember they performed, and I thought it was a sound check.
Yeah. So
I was standing there with the event staff, people like, that was good, like, yes.
Yeah. So they were the opening guy. I was just then when Black
the opening act.
Yeah,
they was
Black,
the opening act at the concession stage. Like, no, shout out to 702. I started not too long ago. Shout out to the sisters and they dope, man. I still love them. They still performing. It was hilarious, but they did. And I remember one show I sat down and ate with them and everything. But Chucky Booker was the musical director on that tour, and I got a chance to meet Chucky, so that was big for me, man.
Wow! But then the Home Again tour, because
I know they say the ill-fated Home Again tour, but if anybody saw a show with all 6 of them on stage, they saw a show.
No. I saw them in Milwaukee in '98 when I was in college. So it was, I was a big Teddy fan. I still am. And so I was Blackstreet was like, oh my goodness, I've just seen Blackstreet perform, and then New Edition, the 6 of them come out, and then they go back in, and Bobby, then Johnny and Ralph, and I'm thinking they don't need any opening act. They could have just done a whole thing themselves. But I was fortunate that I caught it at the beginning in Milwaukee, so I saw the whole thing. But were you backstage throughout the whole tour?
No, I was backstage in Philly and Newark.
Okay.
Philly and Newark, and they were like months apart. So, but in Newark, Ralph wasn't there. So Bobby sang all the leads and Ricky sang some of the leads.
Wow.
And they did the whole show. And Bobby had to do the moves in Ralph's place, which, but, he did the best he could. I mean, but he did it, and I know in another night in Memphis, he filled in for Ricky. And like I said, he did it. Like I said, as a fan, you hate to know what happened. Like, I didn't want to know. I was like, just want to close my ears like a little kid. Like, I didn't want to hear it. Like, no, stop it. Don't say that. You know, it was like when you heard about all this stuff afterwards, it was kind of finding out like Santa Claus wasn't real.
Wow.
You know, as a kid, almost like it was so heartbreaking, disappointing, because what I saw when I saw that show together, I saw some of the greatest stuff I ever seen in my life. And, you know, then to find out what happened, I was just like, oh, damn.
Wow.
Damn, you know, but I found this out years later. But Bobby was, you know, here this guy is Bobby Brown, you know, the megastar, and he stopped and signed my autograph, you know.
Yeah, but you maintain a relationship with him right now. How I mean, how have you been able to manage?
So listen, I'm thinking about all the bad things they were saying about this guy, and I'm like, but he stopped and signed my, you know. and then look, I see him in Newark, and I see him with Whitney. They getting into a Bentley Azure, but they was just so cool, and I'm just like, wait, how could they say this stuff about this guy, you know?
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I was just dumbfounded, like, yo, I think that anybody that really knows and be like, who makes this stuff up, or who says this or whatever. Now I'm quite sure, you know, during that time before I really knew him, that he wasn't a saint or whatever, but damn, you know, people love this dude. And, you know, but like I said, but the powers that be just tried to put this cloud over top of him. But I'm trying to think of when I reconnected with Bobby. It was probably when New Edition got back together and after Michael Jackson died.
Wow.
That's when I think I reconnected with New Edition. And you know, I would just call up and be like, hey, look, I'm gonna be, you know, and then, like I said, then I think the next tour, Bobby started doing individual shows, and it was just the 5 of them. So I would be with the 5, then go off Bobby, you know, then Bobby. But it was like, I just remember in 2016, my nephew was murdered. Wow. And I was messed up, and, you know, being around Bobby, it just helped out a lot, because here's a guy who been through so much with death and grief and stuff like that. And, you know, it was certain things he told me, and just certain things that, you know, that helped me, you know, to get through it. Wow. And I just, you know, like I said, we just became like, you know, just came like brothers, you know. And my thing was this too also. I'm a Gemini, you know, I adjust chameleon-like at times, but if I got a problem with this person, or excuse me, say if a friend of mine got a problem with this friend and that friend, I don't stop being friends. I say that's between y'all, and I stay neutral, you know. So that's how I navigate in between the 6 by staying neutral. But, you know, but Bobby, Johnny, Ralph, Mike, you know, like I said, they, you know, they my brothers, man.
Were you part of the culture tour? Did you throughout, or did you just go some dates?
No, you're gonna laugh at this. You're gonna laugh at this. I had since I didn't hear anything directly or anything like that, I just assumed that I wasn't. So I started another business venture that wasn't even going to allow me to even do that. But I was able to make the Philly show. And then I remember telling Bobby, you know, that, hey, you know what I mean? Great show, but, you know, this is it for, you know, like, this is it, but I'm saying, like, you know, I'll be around, I'll be back, but when it's convenient for me, not when the dates are posted, you know. So it just worked out that I was in Miami during the Miami show, which was the last show. And it was dope. It was dope. But I was at the Philly show too, and I had got the call from A&E because they used some of my pictures for Bobby's documentary on A&E. So I signed the release forms or whatever. I remember I was in the gym working out, and I got the call, and I ran over to like Staples or Office, whatever it was, and had them email me the stuff, printed it out, sent it right back. Then went back to the gym and finished working out. But I was like, you know, like, oh man, you know, see, also throughout the years too, my images and stuff get licensed out. You know, Unsung, that show Unsung.
Yeah.
I'd have been on a couple episodes of that. You know, my pictures and stuff like that. So, you know.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, another Karyn White. How did that relation? Because it just
man, I love me some Karyn White, man. I love me some Karyn White. Let me tell you something, man. I remember I saw Karyn White when I was, I want to say 14 or 15. She was on the Budweiser Superfest.
Budweiser Superfest. Al Heyman.
Yeah, Al Heyman used to do this big concert in stadiums. He would take R&B music, black music, and put it in stadiums in the summertime.
Is he a black guy or white guy? Because I always hear his name.
Al Heyman was a brother.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, Al Heyman was a brother. Yeah, he was behind like so many tours. Like he actually got to start with the Jacksons, man. Like again, like a lot of people say what they want to say about Joe Jackson, but Joe Jackson made sure that black people in this industry got a shot. They say what they want to say about Joe Jackson, Joe Jackson made sure that his family stayed working, had endorsements, tours. He did it. They say what they want. He said, I know how they vilify black fathers.
Yeah.
William's sister's father. I get it. Everybody want to trash a black father and, you know, act like we don't do anything or we ain't nothing. But, you know, Al Hammond got to start with the Jacksons. And like I said, he is a magnate when it comes to that, behind all this, the boxing and stuff like that. And I remember going to the Budweiser Superfest. My friend Fred King and his father got us tickets. And listen, Tony was 702 that night. It was me and my friend sitting up in the joint in a stadium. There was like 20 people in the front, 30 people way up, like nobody got there yet, and they was out there doing their set.
Wow.
I joke with Timmy and Dwayne about that, But because look what they was able to do and become. But yeah, it was hilarious.
But Karyn White.
I saw Karyn White. Listen, I saw Karyn White because Surface was on that show, and it's Bobby Brown headlined it. Patti LaBelle was on that show, and it was funny because I always look at that show too and be like, David Pitt Conley from Surface's mother actually lived in my town in Jersey. When I met Pick had already worked with Jermaine Jackson. They done wrote and produced all the stuff with Surface. They did produce New Edition, wrote and produced New Edition, and I'm at his studio, and this time Pick is supposed to be blind. And he heard me say something, and he ran to me and said, "Yo, you live in Willowboro?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "My mother lives in the, such and such part." I'm like, "Wow," And me and Pick still cool to this day, man. And I look at everybody from that show like we still have a relationship. But I was just a little kid in the audience.
Okay.
Just a little, I actually, man, after the show, Mike Tyson had just showed up, right? Crowd went crazy. After the show, Mike Tyson's trying to drive this Jeep. And if anybody know Mike Tyson, knows story, him and stick shifts, he never mastered them. And he's trying to drive his Jeep. He's got a leather jumper on, leather jumper shorts, shoes, no socks, no shirt. And everybody, I hear this commotion like that, and my friend's cousin stuttered really bad. So he's like, I said, "What are you talking about?" And I turn around, and Mike is driving his Jeep and almost ran me over. and I fell on the ground. The Jeep stops, and I'm looking up, and Mike just stared at me. I like kind of like crawled out the way, and I'm maintaining eye contact. And I said, "I'm okay." And then he just tried to drive off, but it was the most uncoolest scene you could ever imagine. He's trying to put it in gear, and he ain't going nowhere. And I was just like, damn. And you know what everybody told me? You should have got hit. You would have been paid. I'm like, but I might not have lived.
You might not have lived, yeah.
Might be in a wheelchair,
But how did you manage to meet Karyn to form the friendship that you guys seem to have?
Are you ready for this? So I'm just that guy, I'm a fan or whatever. So I remember when she dropped her album Carpe Diem, I would follow the different wherever, she would be on this station, doing interviews. I call in and talk to her.
Wow.
And I would do stuff like that, or any Wistic interview, I'd be like, I find it, and call in and talk to her.
So that was your big obsession, Karyn White.
Yeah, man. She was. Listen, I had the pictures of her and Bobby on my wall, and her all over my wall, and I'm like, man, that's a fine piece of caramel right there. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, I love this woman. What it was it was 2016 in London at Heathrow Airport. That's where I met Karyn White.
Wow. Yeah,
I was going to Ghana. She was going to South Africa, and they always have a switch planes in in Heathrow, right? We were in Newark Airport, and I said to my friend, I said, Sando, man, I said, got some Karyn's on the way to South Africa. I said, wouldn't it be crazy if we met her up, or linked up at Heathrow Airport? I just said it. I didn't know I was really going to do this, right? So we get on that bus, go around to the other side. We going through, putting our stuff back into the little things and going through the checkpoints and everything. Put my stuff through the machines, coming out the other side. And I turn around and I'm like, Karyn? And she's like, Troy. And I'm like, oh my God.
How did she know who you were?
Man, I guess she saw the stuff like on, on social media and stuff like that,
Oh.
She was well aware of who I was. We just never met, She was well aware of who I was for years. We just never met,
Okay. Wow.
And it was at Heathrow Airport, October 2016. time was 4 p.m. No, I'm joking.
But you guys struck a friendship from that.
That's where it started, and it ain't never gonna stop.
My goodness. So I mean,
but yeah, that's where it happened, man. And yep.
I think just as we wrap up, I remember when Ralph got given the keys of the city in Boston or something, and he was doing the Candy Girl within an office. And I think, was that you shouting, "Go and give it Riz, give it Riz"? Were you filming that or what?
I didn't film that part, but I filmed all the stuff from that day. I was there. There though.
I could hear you say, "Give him Riz," but okay, what were you? Okay, were you producing it or?
No, listen, I didn't know what was going on. I was like, I didn't understand what was happening because somebody called me for that, but they didn't give me. So I'm just thinking this, key ceremony, which happened afterwards, So I show up and I'm just like, what the hell are these people doing? I didn't know. Okay. It was a baseball player there and some other stuff. I didn't know. I didn't get it, because they didn't clearly give me an itinerary and say he's filming this PSA, he's filming this thing with these people, I didn't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I came in here like the blind man, with the walking stick.
But did you know Ralph was going to be there?
Yeah, I knew that was his day, and it was Ralph Tresvant's day, and he was getting the key and all that stuff like that. I was like, oh, dope. So I had to be there for that. I remember it rained like crazy going up there, but I made it. I made it. But I look at it like this, and sometimes, like even last night, sometimes I just trip, man. But sometimes I got to take a step back because I think it was 2019. We was in Oakland. It was Foursome D's full force, and full force at Brokango, and Aaliyah from Allure, and Ralph was there too. Ralph was doing sound check, and I was joking around while he was doing If It's in Love, and I was doing the dance steps. Now I'm playing around, but I ain't did them in a while, but I was shocked that I still knew them. But Lou was sitting there in awe, like, yo, you really know, and I'm just like, well, yeah, I haven't done it in forever, but yeah, but I'm doing it behind him or whatever. And I remember Leah had recorded some of it, but I just remember when she posted it, Karen White called me and said, damn, Troy, that's pretty dope. And it was right then and there, and I just thought, like, you know what? Damn. That is dope. I got to do these moves, whatever. And I remember I was like messed up because I forgot and I didn't get a chance to stop home before I came out to Chicago or Indy or Hammond last night. Because I've been meaning to get those sneakers that I was wearing that day signed by him because, realistically, that was like a 360 moment. Like, here's a guy you grew up watching doing this stuff and you on stage, even if it's a sound, whatever, just doing it. It's like certain things is just like, or sometimes I'll be with Bobby and his kids. And his kids, you know what I mean? And I'll be like, damn, or I'll be around, Paul and his wife and his kids, and I'll be in all these places and I just be like, damn, man, listen, and I want to give a shout out to the, like I said, to the Foursome D's, man, Trisco. And it was crazy because I met Trisco last, but me and him ended up super, super tight, man. Khalil, who stepped in after TC died and kept the group going. Zaim, who, when I came around, Zaim was a little kid.
Wow.
I got pictures of him when he was a little kid. The group now, keeping them together, man. And Stevie D's the oldest of this thing. He's still their guy and still there. He's the only surviving member of that group. And, I hope one day, man, his story get told properly. I hope their story get told properly because they got a story unlike, no other.
Yeah, as I said, and I always have to be, because I was born here in England. I went to high school in Nigeria, and then I went to college in the States. And so not all the big groups. So Foursome D's I didn't know them because they recorded
that video for Give Me Girl in London.
Yeah, but by the time, so in the mid 80s to early 90s, I was in Nigeria. So only few groups made it across. So you had to have up-tempo stuff. So, Stephanie Mills, I never knew who Stephanie Mills was or Stacey Ladison, but I knew Shaka Khan because in Nigeria, a lot of the up-tempo type of tracks were big. So any ballads, Jodeci, their first album, all their ballads, Forever My Lady, Stay, didn't come talk to me, no. But I Got a Love and My Phone, those are the ones that we knew. So so I always have to be mindful. So like Foursome D's, I know that Tender Love, but I never knew them as a group. So we
Yeah,
talk about their
listen,
story. So that you know,
listen, when you realize that they were the first group in music history to merge hip hop and R&B together. They were
wow.
beatboxing, they, the whole, every aspect of hip hop they possessed, and was just happened to be so talented that they could harmonize and do the doo-wop and merge everything together. If you kind of look at them in the beginning and you look at the way Boyz II Men started, you'd be like, I get it, I totally get it. They used to have the cardigan sweaters with the F's on them,
Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
their
And Boyz II Men
album.
said it themselves. They said to themselves, it just so happened that I was with Boyz II Men first, and then of course years later,
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's they're probably a group that I'll probably try and reach out to try and
Yeah,
get them.
but when you do the research, you're just gonna be like, your jaw gonna drop, like, wow.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
history
So
makers.
yeah, I mean, so I think that's part of what we're trying to do is, before people pass on and stuff, is really to get them to tell their story.
I got one thing to say. When I was a kid, my first concert was the Jackson's Triumph Tour. Probably the best and the worst thing that could happen to a person. You see something like that, you ain't never gonna see nothing like that great again. Because the Triumph Tour was before the Victory Tour. The Victory Tour was in a stadium. Triumph Tour was in the arena.
Oh, okay.
When something's closed and encapsulated, you can kind of get a better feel. When something's in a stadium, it's so big, you got to be like, hey, I can feel it. You can't feel it. But what I experienced in that show, my father put me on, my father's short too. He put me, and I was a little small kid or whatever. He put me on his shoulders and we sat. He stood in the chair. We still ain't bothering. Like, nobody said, hey, move, or, whatever. My dad, the whole 2 hours they was on, Stacey Lattisaw actually opened for the Jacksons. And he put me on his shoulder the whole hour and 40 minutes. Didn't complain not one time. Put me on his shoulders, and I watched that show. And I remember he brought my brother and my sister, which I understood my sister, but my brother used to give me hell. To kick me out the room, slide my 8-track player, and and I'd be out in the hallway, sleep, listen to Jackson 5 all night, and the Jacksons all night. But I saw that concert, and that was like I remember saving all my allowances so I could buy a tour program and a poster. And, it was just like the greatest thing, the biggest thing. And 2019, I got the opportunity to take my father to meet the Jacksons.
Wow.
You want to talk about not a dry? Oh, shit, I'm about to cry now. Damn. I thought I could just slip that in without. I took him to see and meet the Jacksons. And we waited. we the only ones that had the credentials, but we was being polite. People was going ahead of us, whatever. It's like, oh, whatever. And my father has health conditions now, so I was almost at my wit's end. So guy does this joint, bypasses one more time, and I said, all right, that's it. Dude went to close the door. I put my foot in that door, swung that door open. I said, yo, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, listen, we've been super polite. 45 minutes went past. I said, we're the only ones with credentials. Nobody has credentials, but I'm being polite. We came in, it was like, all right, Jackson's over to the left or whatever. So I go in, and I just did an event with Tito a month ago, actually on the day that Joe Jackson, like the day after Joe Jackson passed.
Wow.
He was doing a thing with his blues band, and I was working that event. I was his photographer. So I'm going up, and I got I think one of the albums in my hand or whatever. And before I get to say anything, somebody off to the side says, yo, hurry up, or something to that extent. And I just lost it, dropped the albums and ran over there. And, I'm like Mike Tyson in that press conference. You know what I mean? Who said that? You know what I mean? This, that, and the other. And they and Jackie and Marlon over there, like, they could stay as long as they want. They with us, And I told them that story. Jackie was crying. Marlon, everybody. Security people was crying. And yeah, it was a big thing, man. It was a big, and I just, that joy. And then see my father cry, just seeing that happiness,
Yeah.
Because it all started with them for me. And my father was the reason,
Yeah.
And I took him to see Bobby. And we was actually it was close to my dad's birthday. He loved boxing. We were supposed to go to something with Larry Holmes. So, I said, yo, Bob, look, we coming by the hotel, bring him. He was like, all right, no problem. Just, be here at this time or whatever. So we get there, we sit on the balcony, and Bobby's talking to my dad and everything. And, this, that, and the other. And I looked at my dad, I was like, yeah, you ready to go? My dad was like, no, I want to go to the show.
Wow.
You know, I said, oh, really? You know, he went there, and some of the fans, were like, they was talking to my father, you know what I mean? Because they kept coming in, was like, oh, this is Dad. It was beautiful, man. It was
Wow.
beautiful. I remember before the pandemic, one of the last shows he went to was Karen White and the Whispers or whatever. He sat on the side of the stage or whatever. And I remember afterwards when we left, he said, that woman fine. Then he was asking me like, yo, like, what's up with you and her? It was funny. It was funny, but it's amazing how the people that made, that made my life, that made my career, made me, got to see the person that made me, and he got to see it.
Yeah. What did he
got
make of your career, though? What did they do? When you decided to do this and not finish college, what was his thoughts? And
man, naturally, like any parent, he wasn't super ultra mega supportive. But I remember when he retired, and I had brought some cast members from a show called The Wire to his retirement party, and then the Force and D's performed. The Force and D's performed, and then they did. My father's a big Smokey Robinson fan, and they did Tracks My Tears.
Wow.
And I saw his face, and they presented him with a platinum plaque and everything. He knew, like, damn, okay. You know what I mean? And then, like, we would have people come by his house, that he'd be like, wow, you understand what I'm saying? Actors, you name it. Everybody come by the house,
Wow.
when he see stuff like that, he'd just be like, wow,
Yeah, and one of the things that I noticed within this culture in outside of Africa is that the black father role model it's been taken away, and it's very rare that I hear a lot of people talk about their fathers in their lives. Being my dad was in my life completely, so that's a very different case. But when I moved to the States, it was rare to have black men to have their fathers present and from start to finish.
My father has been a father. A lot of things you didn't understand, you didn't get. They all come 360 when you become older. And my father wasn't just a father. My father was. I was telling somebody earlier today. My two older sisters has his last name. My oldest brother got his last name. Like he didn't. He was a father. You understand what I'm saying? It's seven of us.
Wow.
He raised every one of them. We never was allowed to say that's my step, that's my this. There ain't no half. It's 100%.
Wow.
We got Hughes in Japan right now. You understand? We got Hughes all over this country. But yeah, my father was a father. He showed me, sometimes you ain't got to talk about it, just do it. And he did it. Far from perfect, but he did it. And because of him, I think I did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
I got one in college, one graduated college, and lives in Texas. 27 and 19-year-old.
Wow.
And I raised like 4. You understand what I'm saying? I took custody of my niece and nephew when I was 28.
Wow.
Yeah.
My goodness. Oh, because this was your cousin that passed away, his kids?
This was my nephew. This is my sister's son.
Okay, sister. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Wow.
Life changing event, but like I said, I did, like I said, parenting ain't for everybody, but like I said, I think the media does a terrible job representing black fathers, and they just every chance they get, they tear down black men.
Yeah.
And then they leave the caucus for us to pick off of and say things about. And I always try and tell people this too. Working in television, film, and video, and music, and entertainment, sports, working in that, I know how it operates. When you watch a documentary, that is what they want you to see. They have dedicated 60 minutes and a gang of hours into editing and spicing something to bend the narrative to what they want you to see. You always have to do the research for yourself, and you can't judge people on these things because, I look at what they did to Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Here was this guy, he was the first of his kind of child, that proficient, that great, a master at what he did, at what he was blessed to do, share that gift with the world, and the world just turned on him and tried to destroy him. And all he wanted to do was share that gift and pretty much, live his life.
Yeah.
And they just wouldn't let him do it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think another thing to always like to talk about is comparison is the thief of joy. Two people are not the same. You know, I always tell people, man, be blessed that you was in an era where you could see a Prince and a Michael Jackson. They are two different people, two different styles, never even to be compared. Enjoy that.
Yeah.
Enjoy that talent. I remember so many years, who's better? You look at sports, LeBron or Kobe, LeBron or Jordan or Kobe. I came from the Julius Erving, the Dr. J era. You know what I mean? In my opinion, I loved him. I loved Kobe. I loved them all. But they really weren't the same people at the same time. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm cool enough. Like, listen, I met Muhammad Ali.
Wow.
I met Muhammad Ali. He signed his pamphlet for me. And it was funny because he was getting mobbed. And you know what I did? I got on my hands and knees and crawled through the crowd until I hit his pants leg. And then I stood up and I recited every rap that Muhammad Ali ever did. And he just stopped and looked at me, put me in a headlock, and said, "You stay right here." And let me hang out with him the whole day. You understand what I'm saying? And he signed his pamphlet. I still got framed. And I'm like, I just look at that. I met, Mike Tyson, but never in my life I'd said, who went between Muhammad Ali and Mike? They were two different people, two different boxers in two different eras.
Yeah.
Greatness. I remember when we was at the new edition when they got their star on the Walk of Fame. And I was under the one. I was sick as a dog that day. But I remember being out there in that cold rain, and I saw Sugar Ray Leonard. And I remember me and my father watching him box. And I seen Sugar Ray Leonard, this guy, like, he aged a day. And he was just so cool, man. But I got like super emotional, like, amongst everything that was happening, was like, man. And then I'm thinking all the people, like, damn, I wish my dad could have been here. I'm thinking, wishing my nephew, God rest his soul, could have been to see that, But, it's just one of those things, man. But, like I said, I never sit there and say, well, would Floyd be able to beat Sugar Ray? No, man, listen, there was different times, different eras. Life is short, man. We got to sit back and live and enjoy these people that got these talents, man. Enjoy them. Enjoy them. Support the support.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things as we finish up, and that's one of the things that you do is to showcase, document, and share the sides of them to the world and stuff. If people wanted to get a chance to see your collection, I mean, which you must do you have an online presence where you showcase any of these? Have you done an exhibition of pictures you've taken over the years, or
No, I didn't do that, but I do have. I will tell you this. 2017, I had a fire, but I was able to save, most of the stuff, a lot of stuff, and I have a exuberant collection of memorabilia, from records to sports memorabilia. I have I could open a museum tomorrow if I wanted to. You understand what I'm saying? So, one day I might do something like that. But like I said, you can just follow me on Facebook. I'm at Capacity, but you can follow. That's Troy Hughes, TroyHughes, and Wonder Troy on Instagram, Wonder Troy on Twitter. And I got more stuff coming from. I was with Ralph and Johnny in Maryland, in Atlantic City, and Indiana.
Okay.
And I got some stuff coming up with Bobby soon, in a week or two. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
A whole bunch of stuff like the the train's not pulling into the station no time soon. Just keep going, man.
Yes. Well, Troy, it's been great. I mean, I always end my interviews by asking my guests that if you were stuck in an elevator and you had to kill time, you had a movie to watch. So what would be your favorite movie that you'd want to watch?
Five Heartbeats, directed by Robert Townsend. 5 Heartbeats. I watched that movie probably more times than I watched any other movie in my life. I love Coming to America. But 5 Heartbeats, because Robert Townsend was in his own about right before COVID, 2019, December 2019, right before COVID. He did a documentary on the 5 Heartbeats and the making of it. And me, Bowlegged Lou, invited me to come up. And we went there. It was a couple of cast members that Robert Townsend curated, and we got to hang out with him afterwards. But I met Robert a lot of times, and I was always fascinated at what he was able to do, because I think the first time I saw him, he was doing stand-up.
Oh
And
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
next, he's doing the movies and everything like that. But great movie, man. I love it. Identify with some of the characters and everything. And yeah, man, it's the greatest movie. I'll watch that movie and stop everything I'm doing today and just that's one movie that I will stop what I'm doing and watch it
Is
every
it better
time.
than the Temptations though?
It is. It is. I'm gonna tell you why. Temptations was made for TV. This was a movie.
Yeah, yeah, I
They,
know. Yeah,
they used an actual group, but they didn't. They just took like you could tell like interview. But the overall goal of the movie, Robert Townsend kept saying that Temptations was his favorite group, and he wanted to know what happened.
okay,
So
okay.
yeah. So he put that out there because it has elements of the Delphonics, the Dells, the Temptation. It has elements of all sprinkles of all that in it.
Yeah,
You know,
and
and
then
are you familiar with Keenan Ivory Wayans?
yeah, 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 yeah. The
Him and Keenan used to
Living
be
Color.
partners. They actually did that together, but it was something that happened. It wasn't like a split or whatever. Keenan was already working on another movie while Five Harpies was held up. That's how. But if you do Keenan's names, his credits are still on there. But
Okay.
yeah, and it was dope, man. I actually have that DVD. I know he autographed that DVD for me.
Okay.
Like that's a prized possession, man. I mean, that's it, man. And I think if there was any one album, it would probably be Off the Wall, Any Heartbreak, Don't Be Cruel, or the Bobby album, or
No, but it's the question is always, what's your
okay,
favorite song?
favorite song.
Yeah, go-to song, because mine is "Lady in My Life" by Michael Jackson. So it's like,
And
what's your favorite?
I was telling somebody this the other day. When Thriller first came out, I would skip over Baby Be Mine.
Oh, that's a good one.
I would skip over that song, and that's my favorite song now. That's my favorite song on that album. It's been my favorite song for some time, but I just remember how I always skip over that song. And now it's my favorite song. Like it used to always just, I never really, and I remember for a time, I used to skip past Human Nature.
Okay.
I guess I was 9 or 10 years old, didn't get it,
Yeah.
I didn't get it, but yeah, man, that it's crazy. But I was watching that documentary on Afrobeats that's on Netflix, and they said the first Afrobeat song was a Liberian Girl sample.
Wow.
So like it's ironic that song that Mike made and Liberian Girl was actually supposed to be on the Victory album.
Oh.
Yeah, I think Mike cut the vocals and was like, I think I'm gonna hold this for myself. I think I'll hold this for the band album.
Yeah.
And that song ended up being the damn song that they sampled for the first actual Afrobeat. I said, ain't this something? I said, ain't this something?
Yeah, I mean, people like Mike and Prince, or even Whitney, they the more powerful they became. Michael owned half of Sony Publishing, and he didn't want to sell. He didn't want to sell.
And he ain't here no more.
But then when he died, it got sold, and you start to think,
and
wow,
it got sold for a fraction of the worth, $750 million. Now I know that sounds like a lot of money,
but it was worth over $2 billion, and so. So so you start thinking that so it's been sad, losing these guys and but what you're doing by documenting, something I'm trying to slowly do by curating these interviews with them as well.
Is great job, man. You're doing a great job. I mean, I look at some of this, I'll be like, wow, and I love the era you're in because it's the era, it's the era. And some of the best music, came out of, but yeah, every artist has a horror story.
Yeah, which is a sad thing, but I mean, who's your favorite then? Not Michael Jackson, but just of all the people that do you have a favorite that you not? I know you don't want to say Ralph or with Bobby and stuff, but do you have somebody who actually, you enjoy just hanging out with the most out of everyone that you've? I
gotta be very, 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 very impartial here.
Yeah.
Everybody. Shout out to High Five H-Town Troop. Listen, man, I mean, it's funny too, because I forgot exactly when I met Troop, but you would thought I'd known them guys forever.
Wow.
John, when that first album, Mamacita album, I had no idea that they actually recorded that right in Philly. The Levert songs that was produced, Mamacita, and it was I Just Like That off the first Troop album.
Yeah.
They recorded that in Sigma in Philly, legendary studio. But not, I guess Gerald, because of the OJs, his father Eddie doing all the stuff there, whatever. He always felt at home there, and that's come to find out, Gerald used to, I found out, oh, Gerald got a little spot down here. I found out after I met him and started working for him and everything like that. And he used to always stay at the Four Seasons. One day we filming a Boyz II Men video over at the Fountain, and I walk over and go have lunch with Gerald at the Four Seasons, then walk back across and go back to the set. And I remember they filmed it. I mean, they recorded there. I remember the Rude Boys. Shout out to the Rude Boys. They used to come there and record. Mid and Larges record there. Everybody, it was a Cleveland Philly thing. Wow. But I just, like I said, I remember thinking to myself, like, I was big fans of Troop. I wrote them a letter. John wrote me a letter back from the fan club.
Wow.
He actually wrote me a letter, and I remember when they was on tour with Hammer, on the Hammer, Please Don't Hurt Him. Just when the Tula, no, this is You Can't Touch This, when Hammer was the biggest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
Shout out to Hammer. I remember using. Now I had decent seats, but when Troop performed, security lady let me up front.
Because of the letter?
Yeah, because of the letter. Yep.
Do people have time to read a letter? Oh, you're friends with John. Okay, I will move you forward.
Yeah. It was, man, it was funny. I remember Dr. Ice from the GFO came to my house, my dad's house. Him and Mixmaster Ice, the DJ, the only surviving members of UTFO. So Recipes, Educated Rapper was there. Kango was there. We at my dad's house, right? And I took him into my office and I said, "Yo, Doc, look at this." And he's looking at this letter that he wrote me when I was like ninth grade. And he's looking at this stuff because he said, "Where'd you get this picture from?" I said, "Yo, you sent it to me." And he's thinking like, and then he reads the letter and he's like, "You ain't gonna believe this." He said, "What?" He said, "The letter you sent me, I got it in my house in a frame."
How come?
I was like, wow. I must have wrote him a powerful letter, huh?
Oh,
I used to see the P.O. box, for the fan clubs and stuff, and I used to write, and I used to get so many return letters. I'm like, damn, ain't nobody listening. But it was just hilarious, man. And then I remember one time in Atlanta, Dr. Ice is coming down the hall. John's coming down the hall, but he's going on stage with Houdini. And we like, you got it, and it's like a weird thing because I'm trying to tell him, like, yo, y'all the two that, that wrote me back.
You're too. Yeah, I really like John. I mean, because he's a big Michael Jackson fan like myself. So
big Michael Jackson fan, and Michael Jackson was a Troop fan.
Yeah, when John told a story about when Michael came up to him to say, "Hey, John, I really like you guys," and he was like, "You know us," kind of thing. So John. Yeah. Did you ever get to meet Mike?
Listen, I had I want to say 2 opportunities, but the one was after it was just weird in New York at the time, I remember, and he did the in-store signing.
Okay.
For when Invincible came out.
Invincible, yeah.
And I just remember I was like, I don't want it to be like that, because I was like, MTV gonna be there, and I passed out. I do not want to be the dude. Like, he's I was like, nah, I and then there was this writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer who, after the fact, so I can't really count that, she was like, "Oh, I could have took it." And I was just like, you know what, I was like, oh man. But yeah, the one time, so I guess the one legitimate time would have been that, but there was a chance, but those allegations broke and the event got canceled, where I would have met the entire family because they was going to do that Jackson's show in Atlantic City.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was that paperwork was signed. You hear me?
Wow.
And they end up the that whole thing happened with those charges in the 90s, and that guy ended up doing it in Vegas, and it was yeah. So I had two opportunities.
Wow. Yeah.
2 opportunities. But I know from what I know that I think me and Mike would have been cool.
Yeah. Well, based on what I'm hearing, I mean, you've shown it.
Because I hit it off with the brothers, like, you know what I mean? I hit it off with them like that. I tell people this all the time. I remember the first time I went to go meet the brothers, I saw Tito smoking a cigar outside the hotel. I pulled him to the traffic light. Man, this traffic jam was ridiculous because I got out that car and I remember I had the little whistling Bluetooth at the time.
Yeah.
And, I was on the phone with my friend Mike, and he hears me this conversation. He's in my ear like, which Jackson is it? Which Jackson is it? You know what I mean? And it was so cool, man. I just doubled, at the light, just got out, stopped, and we was out there chopping it up. So when I parked, Jermaine's kids they was actually outside, and when I went into the building and everything, when I got there, they were Marlon started cracking jokes because me and Jermaine was wearing the same color shoes and the same color suit, And Marlon started cracking. Marlon's a jokester, so he started cracking jokes, and we started laughing. I mean, basically, when I came in there, everybody thought I already knew them, and they never told me to leave, and I never left.
Oh, goodness.
And it was scared to be like, hey, man, you can't, whatever. Now I'm staying, and I stayed. And I stayed.
But as you said, when you've been in and around that for such a long time, it's not, how the confidence is there and stuff. And so, but I guess, it's been really great, hearing your stories and stuff. And I think I can share part of that, sort of the lamenting of the industry and how it has changed people and seeing, I can't begin to imagine what it's like seeing people that, going through stuff, I'm just hearing from it from, an hour and a half, but you've seen it and stuff. And, but my hope is that, we can try and shed more positivity and more light in the industry where it doesn't have to continue like that. But it would also be good. I mean, a lot of these rock photographers continue to do exhibitions to showcase these moments and stuff. So we don't get enough from our Black community. So we don't.
You know what I think it is? I think that because we put a low value on ourselves. You understand what I'm saying? Like you said, like it's him and I don't know why I can't think of his brother's name. He's a Native American brother who he had I remember he had a book called Who Shot You? But listen, there is definitely not enough. And shout out to Kango. I remember he did a thing one year where he honored the photographers. Where he did it. But other than that, like, man, there's so many people, man. I'm gonna kick myself because as soon as we get off this, I'm gonna be like,
well, why don't you do a documentary on
Ronnie Wright? Shout out to Ronnie Wright.
Okay.
Shout out to Ronnie Wright. And actually, shout out to AJ. AJ was the guy who actually discovered Usher. He used to work for Bobby Brown. He did the photography on the Culture Tour. Shout out to him. Okay. I saw him down there, man. Hey, salute,
Yeah, but why don't you do a documentary on with so you can showcase a lot of these things that you have, because it's all digital now. I mean,
no doubt. I mean, I'm definitely gonna look into doing something like that. And some other things are going few surprises, a few surprises. Because I mean, hey, in this era, it's so many things you can just do yourself, and so many things I know how to do that I can do myself.
Yeah, but the reason I'm saying this is that the longer you keep them, the longer it just piles up. But the more
I get it, because I got I've been doing this since I was 17, man. I'm 49.
I was saying, so you've got all this stuff to showcase, because I know the stuff that you that goes to the magazines and stuff, but it's one of the things about documentaries or this digital stuff is just that as the fans we can just, because we're not connected with the music that's out now. And so that's why there's a lot of nostalgia. People are watching myself and, and other channels who showcase these 90s artists and 80s artists, because there's a longing for that type of music and to be in there. So the fact that you've documented this stuff with photos and films, it's something that, we would love to be able to see and celebrate and just share the journey of yourself and the artists and stuff like that, things that we didn't get to see.
Yeah. What I probably do is I probably in just like to show the journey, probably like, when I do it, probably do it section them like, and pick one artist and focus on them, and then another artist, and do it that way. And because it's listen, for sometimes they call people one-hit wonders, but to have one hit, people don't even understand what that entails and what that can do. You know, with one hit, you can still work.
Yeah. Return of the Mac.
Sunshine Anderson wrote a book called One Number One Hit Wonder. And Sunshine Anderson been working every weekend. You hear me?
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, for as far as I can remember, working. You got a hit record. I would always be laughing like Rick Astley he did the mixtape tour with the
back with New Kids on the Block, yeah, and Vogue, yeah.
And killed it. You know, and killed it. You know, shout out to Rona Bennett from En Vogue. She just got married a couple days ago, last week.
Okay.
Last week. Dear friend of mine. Congratulations, Rona. Yeah, man.
Well, it's been great. You know, it's been fascinating being able to finally get to hear your side of the story and stuff. And you know, as I said, hopefully you would showcase your stuff so at least the fans could see a side of the artist that you got to see, the good side. You know, we've been here, yeah, and so that we can continue to do stuff for the culture, because it's stuff that, you know, if we don't tell us the story, no one else would. And you know, as I said, I used to watch Behind the Music on VH1, and I used to listen and love listening to Kiss and Poison and all these groups, but because they showcase that, and I see the photographers showing all the photo sessions of the Who and the Clash and Kiss, but for our stuff, we don't, you know, maybe hip hop they do a lot of graffiti stuff, but we don't. With R&B, it seems to be the one area where nothing gets done. So hence I work. You know, each week I'm doing 2-3 interviews just to capture, because you just don't know, like a Jesse Powell that passed, you know, a lot of these people are passing. You just don't have it.
Rest in peace, yeah.
Yeah, so you just want to be able to talk to these guys, showcase their stuff, and do a side that the fans don't get to see. But you know, you've captured a lot of this stuff behind the scenes. So as I said, either you do a book, a documentary, or do an art exhibition, but a virtual one. But you know, you need to let the global world see the stuff
definitely.
that we've missed out. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, only thing I regret was doing the stuff that I regret was like not taking a picture of my wall, or actually having, you know, people that I didn't want the pictures of my wall. You know, when I was growing up. You know, I remember my dad painted. I remember he painted my room. I went around the record store and bought a Run DMC poster and a New Edition poster. And my dad lost his mind, you know. He just painted the walls, and I grabbed that tape and was like, smack. So he took them down. Right, I want none of these walls. He went on vacation one year. I took every black beat. I did my wall up. He came back. He took them down. Next year he went on vacation. Guess what I did? I was back at it again. I think I was at 14. I lined the walls up, you know, and he came back and just said, well, at least they even. You know what I mean? At least, you know what I mean?
Oh goodness!
I was like, it's a work of art, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, yeah. At least he saw your persistence, and then he probably gave up as well. So he knows that.
And who would have thought that, you know, this would be the thing? You know, like I fell asleep under these pictures and becoming a photographer, fell in love with the album covers, end up becoming, you know, it's just like one of those things you think about. You know.
Yeah. Well, apart from the fact that you always do a birthday video 2 days after their birthdays, is there a reason why you do that?
Yeah, because it's work. It's hours upon hours. I mean, you see it. It could be 3 minutes, 5 minutes, but that 5 minutes might have took me 2 days.
Okay.
Frame by frame, piece by piece. Then you insert the live video. You come out alive. It's work, and then you got to make it make sense. You know, I was after the Maryland show. I think I sat and then I was like, 2 females asked me, you know, about it, and I sat down and, you know, explained to them, you know, how it works. You got to paint a picture. You know, You just want nothing. You want it to make sense. So I said, when I do this, I want it to look like when BET used to do those little montages and stuff, and, you know, or Entertainment Tonight before, or when Mike used to do his little teaser videos for the tour and stuff like that. I was like, I want to have those same effects. I want to have give you that same vibe.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, the guys of New Edition don't tend to do a lot of interviews. I don't see them do much. Is that, you know?
Well, because think about you got a couple in California, one in Atlanta, one in
No, even
Boston.
individually, you don't, not as a group, but individually,
I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm definitely going to try to change that. And you know, I'll be with Bobby and hit the Zoom thing. Hey, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, if you can help, yeah, I would love to talk any of them, even if it's for 5 minutes, just to show, even if it's a shout out or something like that. But it's,
No,
it's
no doubt.
yeah.
I'll do it and send it to you.
Yeah, you can, actually that same thing. If it's like, hey, just those shout outs, like, halftime and the community, just to say thanks for the love, and then at least it
Yeah.
gets the fans going, and just wait for us, and 'cause we're on tour, so check us out. Those kind of stuff, those kind of things are fine. Because I know that Ralph, when he had his single or his album out just during COVID, he was doing interviews, but by the time I started off, he had stopped doing it. So he's not on social media that much. And yeah, you don't see much from Bobby because he had a documentary, but we didn't get to see it here in England. So so some of the time, some of the things they do in the States, we don't get to see it here. So I didn't get to see every little step, and we don't get to see the Bobby documentary because they're not showing it here. So
Got
hence,
you.
yeah. So you got to.
So a funny thing too, right? So when the culture tour came to Philly, I hung out with Bobby the night before. We went to go get Philadelphia cheesesteaks. So I got the chicken one or whatever. So we hung out. We did that. We came to the hotel. He was like, "Look, we back here tomorrow." And I was like, "I really don't want to do all the running around with you," but I'm like, and the producers from the reality show.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah. So the producer the next day when Lisa and the kids come in, they had me sign another release form. So I'm like, okay, I think it's reality show. I think they did maybe use like one or two pictures, but I remember the one episode. I'm just happened to be just watching. Then I'm like, oh snap, there I go, and it was the funniest thing because I was trying to stay out the way every time they was doing something, but I was there, on the set, and I was laughing. I wore this burgundy jacket, and if you ain't see my arm holding that camera, it was the funniest thing because the jacket stuck out so loud, like you saw nothing else. You saw that jacket, But I was on it, but I was laughing, man. But I called him and thanked him for that, and I just laughed, because he knew the whole time I kept trying to stay out of the way or stay out of this,
Okay. Oh, it's a pity we don't get to see it here. So I haven't seen any. We don't get it. It's not shown here in the UK, which is sad. Hence, most of the people, but a UK around Europe, this is our only chance because we don't get to see them until they don't come to the UK or to Europe. They're always in America. So this is the only time that we do get to hear from them is, online and stuff. But yeah, but I've always appreciated your support, and as I said, and but listening to your story today and what you're doing, as I said, my hope is that you do get to bless us with a glimpse of the last 30, 40 years of 35 years of your work, so we can just celebrate these guys visually as we are while they're here, because we don't want to, we don't want them to pass on and we just have to watch we want to be able to celebrate them today while they can still appreciate it and stuff. So I'm still hoping that you do either virtual art exhibition, documentary, or something, so we get to see your work of art.
They say every picture has a story.
Yeah.
And when the day I decided to get serious, or thought I could get serious, it was two people, because it was something that I could do with photography, but it was two people who said, you need to get real with this. One was my cousin April. I did her wedding, but just did it as a gift. Mm-hmm. And friend of mine did this little book, put photos in and stuff like that. And I had did this picture of Rakim with his son on his shoulders, and I ran into Rakim years later, and I gave him that picture. And at the time, I guess he didn't see the son in a while, or something like that. But I just looked at his reaction and watched him get emotional. He's showing everybody, and then he's like, "Can I have this?" I'm like, "Of course." And he gave me his phone number, his address, and he looked at me and said, "Yo, you need to get serious about this."
Wow.
And I remember that picture, and I was thinking that picture was from 1991.
That you took of him and his
That I
son.
took of him and his son. His son was on his shoulders, and he was walking at the old Civic Center in Philadelphia. He was on the side, he was leaving, and he had and then there was this other picture I had of his Jeep, when it had Rakim Allah and the Gucci, Dapper Dan design on the back for the tire. But and it was just like he was just like, oh my God, like he couldn't believe it. But watching that response, really showed me something that day. And then I did something as a kid that I can't, that sometimes haunts me. We was playing, I was about 10 years old. We was playing in the basement, and I remember we knocked over a bag of pictures that my stepmother Marva had, and we kept playing. We never picked them up. We did, days going by, we running down there, just stepping over. Didn't care. I don't know what we was thinking, but although it was 3 of us that did it, I was the one that got singled out. But it wasn't like I got punished or disciplined. It was the fact that woman cried because those were memories lost, and that pierced my soul. That hurt me. You understand what I'm saying? That hurt me. That destroyed me. That taught me how valuable just a picture can be.
Yeah.
It showed me something right there, and right then and there, I tell people sometimes I still hold on to the negative and still got their memories. I still own it. You know what I mean? But it's like, these things, you're not here. These things live on. These memories are, forever.
Yeah, but as I said, we always hope. Yeah, but part of the hope is that as you get to share them, and give us release them to the world, it means that they get light as well.
Yes.
So yeah, hopefully, as I said, I know it's a big project, especially if you've got more than 30 years work of stuff. It's a big project, but you start small, and you may celebrate New Edition, then maybe celebrate Boyz II Men, the bigger groups, Force MDs, and then start to build. But it's it's just, hopefully, as I said, for fans, it's stuff that will just go alongside the music that we love so much and stuff.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. But Troy, I really appreciate it. It's been great. And I'm actually glad we got this time just to, so it puts into content a lot of what you've been doing, and hopefully I'm sure people will enjoy hearing the many different stories, I'm sure, and yeah, the very different stories that you've told. And as I said, and hopefully as they follow, they can watch out for some of the things that you're going to be putting up, of your current.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, well, it's just after midnight here, but yeah, but it's definitely been great, and I'll hopefully within the next week this will go out in segments, and to be able to to give people get a chance to enjoy and see and hear the stories that you've been able to share tonight.
No doubt.
Okay.
Thank you, man. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, it's been great. It's been great for me as well and stuff. But we'll be in touch.
All right.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Hey everyone, I want to thank you for being part of Halftime Chats. This new update is really about our membership, and I'm really excited to be able to fully launch the membership page. There will be things like full interviews from day one. As soon as the interview drops, you get access to it without any ads on it. There'll be some exclusive member-only videos that will just be some behind-the-scenes stuff and some other things that we will never be broadcast. For some members, you can be able to get actually 2 interviews, because I do have a backlog of almost 7 or 8 interviews that I don't even know when I'm going to be able to broadcast them. So you're able to get at least some of those up front. And some just behind the scenes stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes that I have never been able to talk about or release. For anyone else, the videos will still be the same over a week or a week and a half or 2 weeks, depending on how long it is. So everything stays the same. The polls stay the same. The community chats, the community stuff stays the same. But I think with the membership stuff, I'm able to add a little bit more, and invest a lot more time and energy in really supporting the members. So I do hope you come on that ride with me. I appreciate the support, and this will just help me continue to invest in taking things to the next level. Take care.
I begin to. I begin to.